Hey guys, Brian from Variable Traders. It's Sunday, July 12th, and hope everyone's had a great weekend. So we'll just take a quick look at the week that was, what we got coming up. And of course, we're getting launching back into earnings season. So we've got the banks obviously leading things off, and we've got Netflix. Of course, we've even got Delta, one of the airlines, but big ones will be JPM, Wells Fargo, obviously, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Citi, all those big banks reporting. That'll be interesting. Pepsi's going to kick things off on Monday here. And so we'll see how they do, what they report. Of course, Netflix here on the 16th, later in the week. Lots of interesting companies reporting this week, and I think we're kind of just sitting here. Apart from the technology sector, we're just kind of treading water, just waiting for waiting for these earnings to start to get reported here. And you can see how we went out on Friday, strong on all the indexes, but really the standout was the Nasdaq. The Qs actually were not the leader. It was the Dow and the S&P that took us up on Friday, and so that was kind of interesting switch. Let's take a look quickly at some of the indexes here. You can see the weeklies on the transports, again, kind of an indecision candle on the week. We did end up higher on the week. Volume kind of average from the last couple months, so nothing of note there. Let's take a look here. We'll start going through the indexes, the weeklies. You can see here the Dow again. Weekly range a little bit more limited. We ended up on the week about 1% higher. Still, finding some resistance on this 50 moving average here. RSI kind of flattening out, volume building a little bit, but nothing notable. So yeah, I think we're just kind of waiting to see what happens this week, see what the various companies start to report, and particularly the banks. SPY on the week, up 1% and a bit, almost 2%. And again, we're right up near this prior high. Maybe we're either putting in a double top, or maybe next week, if the banks and some of the reports that come out, earnings reports are good, may just push this right back up to 330. It's high here, 335. We may just continue to push higher if we get some decent earnings out. Here the volume's been pretty light over the last couple of weeks comparatively. So again, kind of just sitting and waiting to see what earnings are going to be popping up here. And of course the Qs, just a ripping index, just keeps going higher. Getting into a little bit of an overbought situation here. RSI over 70 now. MACD still sort of continuing up. Stochastics still strong. So we'll see if we just continue higher with the Qs. As I've been mentioning, it seems to be the new safety trade. Everybody wants to be in the technology trade. And of course the small caps. Small caps actually finished down on the week. That was the only index that was down. And again, the small caps struggle here to make up any ground. And we're hanging right around a couple of moving averages here. So it'll be interesting to see which direction they go. We're putting in maybe a bit of a topping action on this. And again, the small caps are struggling, and probably part of the whole challenge with the pandemic and which companies are getting hit the hardest. It's probably the smaller cap ones having the most challenges here. So you can see here the VIX, we're just kind of chopping over the last week, not really going anywhere. Still holding up at the 200-day moving average. So seeing if we do drop below there, and again, if we get some good earnings reports, I suspect we'll lose this 200-day moving average and we'll head back down to maybe even fill this gap. If we get some bad earnings, we'll probably maybe head back up to 40. So we'll see what comes with the earnings. You can see here on the week, bit of an indecision candle down on the week, 1.5% roughly. So yeah, and on the 10-year, we're still in this 0.6 to 0.7 range, but look at the daily on the yield on the 10-year. You can see why one of the reasons the banks kind of rallied on Friday. You can see here the yield popped up a bit, but again, it just seems to be on a bit of a descending line here. So we'll again keep an eye on those rates as we get into earnings seasons with the banks, because if the rates go up, if this chart starts to go higher, certainly it will be good for the banks. May not be good for the rest of the market, but it'll be good for the banks. So let's take a look at what we've got on watch here. Gold, I still, in the long term, I still think gold is a great investment. We may be getting a bit of a pullback here after we got through this 1800 level, which was a sort of a psychological level more than anything. Now getting a bit of a pullback, but as a stock or an index or a commodity goes higher, you break to a new high, you pull back, check back to where you broke out from, and then you continue higher. So with all the money printing and I just think that the gold will continue to do well, and I also think silver will continue to do well. So I think silver actually looks even better than gold on a relative basis. Silver has been underperforming gold, and I think that's where you could put some money if you're going to look at silver or gold or a combination of. And this Bloom Energy is one I'm looking at here. I've got this on watch. Looks like it's just about ready to break out here. A 1450 handle would be an interesting place to see it break out from. Get a bit of a pullback here. Could be a good opportunity to ride this higher. Again, you can see here on the daily it just keeps going higher, so maybe we get a pullback to 1250 might be a decent entry. Getting pretty overbought here. Volume is really dropping off, so compared to back here, say. Stochastic's really up, a little overbought there as well. RSI, again, I said overbought. I was looking at the defense, aerospace and defense ETF here. It looks like it's kind of holding this 10 level. Bounced on Friday, so maybe if we get a bit of a pullback tomorrow, might be decent entry, stop at 10, and then maybe first target 1250 area where the moving averages are, and of course where all this kind of topping action happened before, and then we hold a little bit for the next level, maybe 15. But it kind of looks interesting. Maybe RSI's turning up here. Stochastics maybe looks like they're turning, so yeah, I'm kind of interested in that one. And of course, keep this one on your radar, because if the banks do report on Tuesday, some of them have come out with some really good numbers. The market takes them as positive, then this is a good way to play the overall sector with the FAS. You could easily see this back up to sort of in the 35 range for a first target price, and then but I wouldn't be entering this until we hear from start of the banks. Again, GDX, the way to play gold. Again, it looks like we're getting a bit of a pullback here to where we broke out from. Gold is up a little bit right now. Volume really light on Friday on the GDX. Intel, this was one that one of our members asked me about. Intel's obviously had a little bit of challenges with with the Apple news about them making their own chip, and you can see here it is really just trying to hold this 200-day moving average. So if you wanted to take a trade on Intel, I would say use the 200-day moving average as your stop, and if you wanted to hold it for the long term, I still think there's mixed reviews on Intel, whether a lot of the analysts think it's good, or it's still a strong company. It's not going anywhere, and yeah, so I still think it could be a good long-term hold if you wanted to tuck it away and just use a 200 as a stop. Micron was the other one they asked me about. I'm looking at this, thinking I'm seeing kind of a pennant here. It looks like it's ready to break out one way. It actually, based on Friday, looks like it wants to break higher. It's holding this 50 moving average here. So it looks like Micron might actually want to break out from this ascending trend line. So could be something interesting. Volume nothing spectacular. Nothing to write home about. Stochastics turning up there. The only thing I think on MU, I think it actually reports in 10 days. So just be careful about that. I'm not sure I would want to hold something like MU through earnings because it's just my philosophy. I don't like holding stocks through earnings. Silver again, this was one I talked about. You can see here we've got a nice trend line going higher, and I think silver continues to perform along with all the other index, all the other metals. Copper's been going higher. Palladium's been going higher. All these metals have been pushing higher, and I think it's partly money due to money printing, and maybe there's some they're looking for countries are talking about putting money into infrastructure. So steel, I know X was up on Friday as well. So maybe a lot of this all this infrastructure talk is driving some of the metal commodity prices higher. And again, partly with potential with all the money printing. Snap's kind of just on a trend here, so another little pullback here might be an interesting entry. TBT again up on Friday just because the yields were up, and we'll be keeping an eye on where that's going, just based on where the banks are going to go. TNA again, this is if we get some good performance, small caps. TNA is holding this 50 moving average, so if we do get some good earnings coming out and some more positive signs in the economy, maybe small caps will start to perform. But right now, as I said, small caps are the index that has been really holding up the rear, underperforming everything else. So it's really not where you want to put your money unless you see some breakout. Let's just see some breakout from, say, this trend line here. TQQ again. This is a great way to play the Qs. Every day you can just wait for the pullback, buy it, and sell it on the pop back up. That's more of a day trade, but I've been doing that lately. TWO, I don't know why that's there actually. Natural gas had a nice pop. Now it's kind of consolidating. I don't really think there's a trade there. USO, the oil index. Again, we talked about energy. It's just looks like it's on the verge of breaking out here. We've got a low, a higher low, a higher low, a higher low. So it looks like it's trying to break here, but then there was some news, I think it was on the weekend, or I read somewhere that the Saudis were talking about increasing their oil production, which obviously in an environment where oil demand is down, it's not necessarily a good thing for price of oil if you get more coming online. So yeah. Anyway, I'll just want to finish off with some candles at a glance here. Let's just take a look at what worked and what's not working. The sectors, communication again just broke out here on last week. You can see here just wants to go higher. Again, the materials I was already talking about. You can see looks like they did a little pullback here now. Maybe heading higher. Staples finally moving a little bit here. XLK, a little bit of topping action. That's the technology. So you can see here we're kind of shifting out of technology maybe because it's had a big run, and now they're going back into things like communication, materials, the staples, going back into staples. And you can see here, this was one of the charts I really found interesting. XLU, the utilities, of course, the typical safety trade, actually breaking out here. We had a cross of the moving averages, so something to keep an eye on with the XLU. Again, XLF, this really chart's just going to depend on what we hear next week, so I already talked about that. That's about it, everybody. It's my book on Amazon, How to Swing Trade. I hope everybody had a great weekend, and psyched to get going again Monday morning, 8:30 a.m. as usual. We will be in the live on YouTube. Usually Carlos and Norm will take us through the pre-market show, and then we'll be trading the market open on Monday morning, 9:30 Eastern Time. So that's it. Have a great rest of the evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning, hopefully. Bye for now.